To some degree or another, social media is obsessed with where you are. I believe there has been a reminder to this congregation at times that when you come into worship, you should tweet or offer a status update saying where you are, and then turn your devices off. Facebook does want to know your location, who you're with, where you are when you take a picture. The picture alone has far less value than it does when it has a description of where it is, who is in it, and what it is. When I walk down a hallway and I see a gorgeous photograph of the countryside or a mountain, I think, boy, that's beautiful. Where is it? As if my knowledge of where it is would somehow make it more beautiful. I want to find myself in that picture. Have I been there? Is it real or is it computer generated? Where is it? Have I been there? Is it real? These are important questions for us. If you take a snapshot of your life, a particular moment from this past week, who you were with, where were you? Were you wearing a mask at the time? Did it seem real, or were your masks, your various masks that you wear each and every day, were they stripped away in a moment of authenticity? What moment from this past week do you bring with you now into this space and into this place that informs your sense of beauty or glory or woundedness? What moment was it where your location, your surroundings spoke to you most profoundly? On Thursday morning, I was riding my bike in the dark, and I do not say that because I'm training to be a triathlete. It's just that with little children, it's the only time of day I have to get up and actually do something with my body that's mildly productive. So I got up early on Thursday morning and went for a bike ride. I went up onto Highland Avenue, hung a left, and rode up Normal Avenue, heading towards the Cedar Grove Reservoir. As some of you know, it's very dark out that way. The only light that I had was the little LED on the front of my bike. As I was going along, I heard what I thought was some rustling in the woods. It's silly. I tell my own children, don't be afraid of the dark. There's nothing to fear in the dark. There's no problem going upstairs by yourself. Nothing to worry about. And yet here I am, closer to 40 than 30, and that version of me pedaled as fast as I possibly could around the edge of Cedar Grove Reservoir after a little rustling. Probably a squirrel in a tree or a deer just moving out of fear of me. But in that darkness, in a place where I had been before, yes, I will admit it, I was a little frightened. And it felt very real. There was fear, small fear, but real fear, I must admit. Maybe it's because I saw the Blair Witch Project in the summer of '99. Maybe I'm just a scaredy cat. Either way, I felt fear. We rely on location all the time. What year was it that... What restaurant did we go to when... How old was Mom when... We mark our lives by our location, and when we can't recall the specific location, whatever level of location we need as our reference point, it can be disturbing. We find ourselves scrambling a little bit. Where was that? When was that? With whom? Because location matters. When location is denied, when location is upended, we have a problem. We feel scattered. We see this happening in the refugee crisis in Europe. There is a Somali British poet, Warsan Shire, who said recently, "No one puts their children in a boat unless the water is safer than the land." No one puts their child in a boat unless the water is safer than the land. Talking about location. Isaiah 52 occurs in the second half of a section of that book that scholars call Second Isaiah. There is a first or proto-Isaiah, which is chapters 1 through 39, and then a second Isaiah, which starts at chapter 40. The book of Isaiah centers around the exile of the people to Babylon. That exile ends thanks to King Cyrus, who is the only anointed Gentile in the Old Testament. King Cyrus of Persia overcomes Babylon, sets the Jewish people free. They are free to go back to Judah and Jerusalem. Second, Isaiah's composer writes in the hope of a scattered Judah, a scattered kingdom coming home once again to Jerusalem. And fellow Israelites can now come back and rebuild the city that was destroyed decades before. The sermon title, Look to Your Right, is not a political statement or a symbolic statement. I really mean literally. Look to your right this morning if you are seated in the pews. If you look to your right, you can see the center window over here is the war service window. The characters in that window on top are Isaiah, God's prophet of peace, and further down below is Joshua, God's warrior. If you have ever taken a good close look at that window, you'll have noticed that there are insignias around the edge. Above Isaiah is a red cross, really for the American Red Cross. On the corners are the insignias of the armed services in World War II. At the very bottom, there are inscriptions from the book of Isaiah and the book of Joshua. And then on the very bottom is the Divine Comedy, Dante. In his will is our peace. I love this window for all that it symbolizes. It acknowledges great difficulty. It acknowledges fear. It acknowledges that our greatest hope is peace rather than war. It acknowledges that in our lives, most of the time, we would rather Isaiah win out than Joshua. Joshua. The walls come a-tumbling down at Jericho. Joshua. Joshua with the sword and the shield. Our better selves are Isaiah, reaching towards the heavens with a word of peace. Life is full of struggle. Life is full of fear. In his will, in God's will, is our peace. We read from the book of Isaiah just a little while ago. If the meaning was clear to you straight off the bat, then you're doing better than I am. Depart, depart, go out from there. Touch no unclean thing, go out from the midst of it. Purify yourselves, you who carry the vessels of the Lord, for you shall not go out in haste, you shall not go out in flight, for the Lord will go before you, and the God of Israel will be your rear guard. The book is saying that there were people who were left in Jerusalem. Those people had children in and around the walls of Jerusalem, and they were detached from the rest of the exile. They did not feel the exile in the same way that the people who had been shipped off to Babylon. And so as these exiles are coming back to Jerusalem, there is a remnant. There are people who are within the city walls that cannot adequately celebrate the presence of God within the city in the same way that the exiles who are returning can. And so they are told to go out. Get away from your safe place and your safe space. Go out into the wilderness as a process of purification. Go out, and when you do, God will go in front and behind. God will go out and protect and encourage. When you go out into this new place, when you get out of the city walls, then God goes too. The people who stayed are being asked to go out and be vulnerable. It would be far easier for them to stay, but not necessarily better. There are so many things that happen in our lives where we say it would be far easier for us to do X, but not necessarily better. It'd be far easier if you didn't own a puppy, but not necessarily better. Like anything that is truly worth doing, The hard thing and the right thing are usually the same thing in life. That's Michael Caine, not Scripture or Dante. The people in Isaiah are being asked to peel away a mask, enter into vulnerability, or as my son says, have an interruptious moment. Scared and sustained. Scared and sustained. Dante's "In His Will Is Our Peace," of course, has a larger context as well. Dante wrote in the Divine Comedy, "Think carefully about what love is, and you'll see. Such discord has no place within these rounds, since to be here is to exist in love. Indeed, the essence of this blessed state is to dwell here within His holy will, so that there is no will but one with His. In His will is our peace. It is the sea in which all things are drawn, that it itself creates, or which the work of nature makes. In God's will is our peace." I like the war window because of the tumult that necessarily exists in the symbols that are portrayed there. About 4 years ago, my daughter had a series of ear infections. We thought she was very energetic. And then she had her adenoids out. And we went, oh my gosh, who is this child? Suddenly she could go all day long. But before that, she had a series of ear infections. Of course, as a young child, she would get new teeth from time to time. And so it was very difficult to discern where her fever was originating from. Was it her ears, adenoids, throat, teeth? So at times at night, she was miserable, and she would wake us up. And there's a very specific location for my memory here. A bedroom in Woodland Park, Colorado, on a rocking chair, looking out at the wall opposite the rocking chair where there were 2 windows high up in the wall, about 12 feet high, meaning that I could sit on the rocking chair and look out at the stars. And on my shoulder, a child, confused, sick, hot, whimpering for hours and hours. Rock back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. On the glider, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Stuffed animals nearby, back and forth, back and forth. Saying to myself, Dave, there is no progress in life without struggle. Back and forth, back and forth. There is no real meaning in life without moments like this, back and forth, back and forth. And I've never been here before, and I don't know what to do. Back and forth, back and forth. And just sitting, holding my child. I am so vulnerable. Back and forth, back and forth. I don't know what to do. Back and forth, back and forth. Man, this is real. This is so very real. I am an open book. I am ready and open for God's peace because I am scared, but I am sustained. Back and forth, back and forth. The prophet says, how beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of the messenger who announces peace, who brings good news, who announces salvation, who says to Zion, your God reigns. Listen. Peace be with you all.